Okay, so best for last, as always, right? So we'll just jump right into it because this is the last panel of the day. I'm gonna have each of our panelists introduce themselves, maybe in like 3, 4 sentences, and we'll start from Josh, work our way down here, and then we'll get started.
Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Fraser. I'm one of the co-founders of Origin Protocol. We're enabling decentralized marketplaces on the blockchain. So think of things like Uber or Airbnb that you can build without any centralized server in between. And by doing that, you can cut out the fees that these marketplaces usually charge. You can remove that single point of failure, so you can't get shut down like many of these companies have been in other places. And you can also serve the unbanked in the world that don't have access to these centralized marketplaces for a simple reason: they don't have credit cards and bank accounts. And so that's what we're working on, and looking forward to this panel today.
Hi everyone, my name is Loy. I just spoke 40 minutes ago. I'm CEO Kyber, and we have been building the decentralized token swap protocol, so that can be used in like wallet, website, and even smart contract. Excited to be here on this panel.
Hey, 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 hey. Hello, guys. My name is Yusuke Obinata, but people call me Obi, like Obi-Wan. I got in crypto space when I started working at venture capital when I was a student back in 2014, and we were one of the seed ambassadors for a company called BitFlyer, which became the biggest crypto exchange company in Japan, and also we are the first ambassador for Omise, the company behind Omise Go. So I've been very close with like founders of Omise, and that's how I got in this space. And starting from like this year, I started organizing meetups in Tokyo with some international projects. Started from QuantStab, New Cipher, Omisigo, Ethereum Foundation, under the name of CryptoIsh. We just organized the first tech-focused conference in Tokyo last week called Node Tokyo, with like 500 people joined with us, and Erica and several other speakers of BUIDL also joined. So that's what I've been doing. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey everybody, my name is Dylan Jones. I'm the founder of Referium. We specialize in adding transparency to referral marketing, particularly on the blockchain. And in addition, we got our start in video games. So we've worked with games, with influencers and games like Fortnite. And in addition, a lot of our tools have been adopted by blockchain companies that all foster around influencer marketing, additional transparency on the chain, and most importantly, fostering communities between, again, these games and the fans, token projects, and the people who are engaged in crypto these days.
Thank you, everyone. And to introduce myself, my name is Eric Chung, and I'm the founder of Dapper Network, which is an education provider that brings coding bootcamps to communities that want to have sustainable education within their local cities. And so we have software developers who already have programming experience transition into the blockchain development world so that we can have more devs to BUIDL. And I'm also a lecturer at USC, University of Southern California, teaching the first smart contract programming class there. And finally, the co-founder of LA Blockchain Lab, which is a nonprofit. It's a partnership between the LA government and a couple of enterprise companies in SoCal, so that we could provide university students with all these like different opportunities in government and academia. So with the introductions all done, I want to kind of start from big picture. A lot of people talk about community, and it's kind of become a word with not so much value these days. But just for like a little bit of like a history, I want to talk about lots of blockchain projects in this space has gained traction by positioning themselves as community-oriented, especially like developer-focused. But over the last 20 years, a lot of internet projects have also done that, but not have gained as much success as blockchain projects have. Why do you think? Like, could you break down why the community narrative resounds so deeply with the blockchain world specifically?
So at Origin, we say that we're 50% technology and 50% community. And I think the reason for that is this understanding that the value that we're creating, a lot of it is coming down to a belief system. When you think about the value of fiat currency that we have, the value of it is just the fact that enough people in the world believe in it. The reason that people are willing to accept US dollars is because there's enough people out there that believe that US dollars have value, and therefore you're willing to accept that because of the goods and services that you expect you can use those dollars for. And so once you realize that, and that's really the beginning and the end of the value that you're getting from dollars, in cryptocurrency it's the same thing. The reason it has value is because other people believe it has value. And so a lot of times when we're talking about community building, it's going out there and convincing enough people in the world to believe that the token that we've created has value and has utility. And the best way to bootstrap that belief system is with the technology that we're building. That the tokens that we're creating or the currencies we're creating allow you to do things you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. But that doesn't mean just building it isn't enough. If you can build an amazing blockchain but no one uses it, it's not worth very much to anyone. What becomes interesting is when you marry those two things together, when you bring the technology is 50% of it and the community, and that community is sort of this umbrella term for marketing, PR, Telegram groups, all of these different components we do of events and conferences, and bringing people together, sharing what the vision is, and finding people who share that vision with you. And that is when, that is why it's so important, is bring those two things together. And yeah, that's what.
So I think one of the main reasons why most of a few communities do not work out is because the project do not communicate well and do not tell what the community can do with them, right? For example, for the case of developers, many projects they claim technical advance and many interesting things, but when we visit their GitHub page, there's no documentation. There's no public open source code base that people can actually look at, right? And we have been talking a lot about user friendly, but we haven't paid much attention to developer friendly. We have to make it extremely easy for the mainstream developer to start working with your project, clear documentation, APIs, and everything, right? So at Kyber we have been trying to do that very much. We even have offline tutorial or workshop just to teach even non-blockchain developers about what they can do with blockchain and cryptocurrency and with Kyber as well. Yeah.
So I think Japan has been a big crypto community, but until last year, it was just community of speculative investors. So, but starting from this year, especially after the big Ethereum community meetup that I co-organized with folks like Jun from Omisego, we brought Vitalik, Joseph Pung, Gavin, and all other came to Tokyo, and we had 500 mostly developers join with us. And after that, I see a more and more depth-focused blockchain meetup happening in Tokyo, and some people organically translating Plasma white paper into Japanese. So yeah, I mean that's been a very big change in Japanese community. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, completely echo what's been said so far. Really agree with Josh's comments about value. And in addition, though, you highlighted that a lot of crypto companies have had success, perhaps more than some internet companies. But in addition, just like everything in crypto and blockchain, it still feels from a community perspective like it is 1992. We are still figuring out, I think, as an industry, what does it mean to actually have a successful community? We've seen that evolution just in the blockchain space, even over, you mentioned your timeline of 1 year. I think that's the perfect timeline for it, right? Just if you look past a year ago, token sales, everything relied on how many pages is your Bitcoin talk thread, right? And then it kind of evolved into how many people do you have in your Telegram. And now we're finally getting to the point where relationships matter in community, right? Where it's not just these silly metrics and much more of a tight-knit community. And instead of a one-to-many relationship like we've seen on Twitter and all these other aspects, now it's more of a one-to-one relationship.
Definitely. And I like that you've said that because this guy right here, his project has broken Telegram's record of having the most
I do know something about metrics on Telegram, and I'm looking forward to moving away from them, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And Josh, I really like the way that you put it, how technology serves as a medium to kind of like propagate these values. So to kind of expand on that further, I'd love to hear from each of you guys, maybe Josh, because you've already like touched upon this. Like when you put out to the world that you are a community-oriented project, like what kind of culture are you specifically trying to propagate and encourage from other projects so that they could take up the mantle and be more developer-focused as well?
Yeah, so at Origin, our culture is really around how do we maximize personal liberty. It's baked into everything we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. And blockchain is really good at removing intermediaries and cutting out the middleman and giving power back to the individuals. And that is something that I'm very passionate about and something that I'm excited to get up every morning and work on. It's something we're able to really contribute a lot of, contribute something I really care deeply about. When we look at what has ushered in peace and prosperity in this world, it's free trade and open commerce is really the biggest thing that's changed us so that we stop fighting with each other and we start trading with each other. We found it's more profitable and we're all better off when we trade with each other. And so Origin is a platform for marketplaces where buyers and sellers can find each other without a middleman. And we're excited just to promote open and fair commerce because we think that's really important for ushering in world peace on this planet.
It's like ultimate capitalism.
Yeah, so I think at Kyber we have been like trying to be more and more friendly and welcoming to new member of the communities, and especially we really wanted to be like super responsive. So if they have any question, we will just have one of our members replying them. So this is actually like what brought me into the space as well. So I started like doing research in cryptocurrency and like Ethereum like 4 or 5 years ago. And we wrote like one of the first academic paper about Ethereum, and we sent to Vitalik and asked for review. He came back with like three-page long comment, and we appreciate it a lot. Yeah, so we wanted to bring the similar value in our community as well, so that like people will feel like they are actually listened and they are actually a part of the community and they wanted to contribute more. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's really special because, as a professor at USC, it's hard for me to respond to my students when they're asking me about their final project, and for you too. Like, I can't even imagine the amount of, requests that you guys get. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, so the thing that I've been focusing to bring in Japanese market is that is BUIDL. So I wasn't really interested in Japanese market until like late last year because it's all about speculation. But I started seeing more and more the actual developers interested in technology side of the blockchain. And that's what I've been seeing like outside of Japan, people started bidding. Also like the other thing is like to focus on the younger generation, because when I look at the world, the people who's driving this industry is like a very young people. So I started doing the student-only blockchain meetup in Tokyo, and after that, like several students started forming kind of like a university blockchain research group, kind of like a blockchain at Berkeley, in like several top university in Japan. So yeah, those two things, like BUIDL and young people. Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question, actually?
Yeah, go for it.
Why do you think you've seen that transition in Japan to be all about building? And do you think that correlates to what we've seen as an industry, or do you think that's specific, or why do you think that is?
I think like I think like the first big Ethereum meetup back in March did actually a big role. So yeah, that meetup became in a big news, and then got a lot of attention from the developers. And also a lot of tech big enterprises in Japan started working on blockchain, especially the end of last year or something. So the employees of those big companies, they started doing kind of like a grassroots organic dev meetups, and then just those small meetups started to get attract more and more developers like in the past year.
Yeah, to kind of follow that train of thought, like for those of the audience members here who might, maybe they're wanting to participate in these developer communities, but people around them are all about hodl, 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 or like when Moon, Lambo. Like, do you guys have any insights into how maybe they can break out of that sphere, and how maybe they can encourage their fellow peers to kind of adopt this more tech-focused mindsets in order for the entire space to kind of grow as a whole?
Yeah, if you figure out how to get people to stop asking you when Lambo, please let me know. I haven't figured that out yet. But I do think that when it comes to some of those questions, you really have to embed your responses and your attitude towards that into the DNA of your project in your company. Every single response needs to be, hey, check out our updates. Look at what we're building, and correlating that since day one. I've seen projects that have tried to steer into that, or they're dodging it, and as soon as that shift starts to happen, and the hungry wolves of the internet kind of pounce on you. But if you from day one have always stood with a posture of, stop sending me moon memes and start paying attention to what this project is building or what we're building, that I just think from day one has to be there as part of the DNA of a project.
Yeah, I'll say the first thing you have to do is have a clear vision that other people are excited to get behind, right? If you have a clear vision that other people are like, yes, that is the future I want to see in the world, then it becomes a lot easier, for them to say, okay, how do I get involved? And for a lot of projects, you see, it's actually really cool just how many projects are open source. And we see, I'd say it's probably more projects are open source than not in this space, which is really cool. But one thing that we've done at Origin is taking it one step further. Not only do we open source our code, but we open source the process of how we build our software. And so we have a public Discord, and our engineers do all of our collaboration every day in public. So you can hang out with the co-founder of PayPal and first engineer from YouTube and the head of engineering from Dropbox, all of who are on our team, and all of them are typing away, talking about how they want to implement different features and debating, whether we should do it this way or that way. And what that does is it makes it really, really easy for people to see what our problems are and for people to jump in and contribute. And I think that's one thing I would encourage a lot of projects to do, is look at how you can be more transparent, not just in the final product of the code that you ship and release as open source, but actually allow people to see how the sausage is made. We have public engineering calls where we just have a Google Hangout, we publish the URL online, everyone is welcome to join, and people do it every week. We have new people jump in and participate in our conversations. All of our meeting notes are all public, they're all on the web, you can go find those. And what it means is if someone is interested in getting involved and contributing, they don't have to come and talk to us. They can just go scan the notes. They can get up to speed on what we're doing. And that's also been an amazing pipeline for us of finding open source contributors, people who are like, one, they agree with our vision, two, they want to get involved. Now it's really easy for them to do that. We have over 60 open source contributors who are contributing to our project. And that's led to some great full-time hires for us as well.
Nice. Any other thoughts before I?
Yeah, I mean, apart from what you have shared, right, at Kyber, we realize that it's impossible to prevent people from talking about the price and asking about Lambos, right? So what we do is we just ask the community to create an official channel for people just talk about the price, and it's not moderated or not governed by Kyber, but like if you are interested in talking about the price, just go there, right? So this is a channel to talk about the community, the technology, and the vision, and what people have been building. Yeah.
I like that. And I think transparency is a really big component of community building. Theoretically and like on paper, like I think it sounds really easy, right? It's like, well, we're building this technology that promotes transparency, therefore we should also be transparent with our own processes. But we all know that that is much easier said than done. So I'm curious, like, what are some of the things that you felt when you first decided to like just open source your entire processes? Like, I'm sure there were some
Discomfort?
yeah, could you like dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, it takes a little bit getting used to, right? Like putting yourself out there. It's kind of like getting up on stage and talking in front of a crowd. It's like really
Every
uncomfortable.
day.
Yeah, you're just doing it like you don't know who's there, you don't know who's watching, and so it is uncomfortable, and you have to get used to it. I think for us at Origin, even most of our engineers have never done this before. We come from, large established companies which, sort of operate in a very different manner. It's uncomfortable for people at first, but you get used to it, and I think the benefits quickly illustrate performance and show up, and you can see why it's so beneficial as over and over again we're struggling with a problem and some stranger pops their head in and says, oh, I know, here's a solution to that thing that you're struggling with, and we would never have found them or if we hadn't been so transparent. And so I think the benefits far outweigh the discomfort, and you'll get over it very quickly. One of the biggest questions we get on the way we operate is, aren't you scared that people are going to, steal your code? If you're telling them how you're doing everything, like, can't people steal it? And I always say there's sort of two things you have to fork, is what we're talking about here. You can fork our code. It's all open source. We're 100% open source. And it takes one click on GitHub for you to fork our code. But there's two things you have to fork. You have to fork, one, our technology. That's easy. But two, you have to fork our community. And that is the hard part, right? It's all of the people in the world who now know about our project, and our team, and our vision. And you have to somehow convince them to take that in a different direction. And if you can, then that means that maybe if you're able to fork our community, maybe that means that you have an interesting idea that we should be paying more attention to.
It's very optimistic. Yeah, very collaborative. I like that. Any other thoughts?
I mean, Origin's the leader of this. Props. I am blown away consistently how you guys managed to do that. I love the mindset and the approach, and I think the benefits are almost unlimited. I think there's also, like you're talking about, a lot of difficulties that, to be frank, when you're running, particularly a business in an emerging field, when you're scaling up from a small team rapidly to large, having that discipline and that chaos is not necessarily for every project. And so that it can just be difficult. I think that's the right way of doing it. Something I kind of view it as, coming from gaming, I'll sometimes jump on a Twitch stream, right? And it has that sense of being naked, or, what's going to happen, right? And when you're on a live Twitch stream, talk about reading the comments or not. When you never know what comment is going to come at you. It's that same sense of feeling, but I think that consistency and that conversation is so important. And so we're certainly nowhere near the excellent discipline of that level of transparency, but always making an effort to have a transparent conversation, to have that open space. It's actually really easy to get into the cadence of that. So there's certainly different levels of transparency that we can all work towards. And I think that there are a lot of very approachable ways that are just have an open conversation, do an AMA on Reddit, right? All different types of avenues to connect.
Yeah. And the way we think about it is public by default. That doesn't mean that everything is public. It just means if you want to make it private, you've got to sort of make your case on why that needs to be private. We don't disclose our salaries. There's a lot of information in our financials we don't publish. But we have reasons for that on why we're not doing that. But we try and push ourselves to sort of default to public.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you guys are making. Transparency in and of itself is amazing, but there are different degrees that you can, take an approach as it suits to the way that you guys run your own projects. And I'd love to hear more from Obi's side. Like we have projects here that are talking about their methods of transparency. How do you, as like a community organizer, help facilitate these projects to become more transparent?
Yeah. So I think for Japan, I think it's more important to actually be on the ground to interact with the community member or the developers in person, because there's still a big language barrier in Japan. So not many people can catch up with what's going on through the internet, and not many people reading on Reddit. A lot of people on Twitter. So I think the projects that have been doing very good job in Japanese market is the one that actually be on the ground and then doing actual meetups or hackathons there. So Kyber has done several meetups, and then Origin, you guys has done the first meetup in Tokyo last week.
Looks like you need to bring Referium over here.
Yeah.
So also I think Loom Network is doing a very good job. So they have a Japanese person on the ground, and they've done several hackathons there. So yeah.
Okay. And to switch gears a little bit, are there any particular geographic regions you guys are focusing on for, where you see a lot of developer activity, engaging with your projects?
Korea is obviously undeniably a leader in this space. We think of Korea as one of the top markets, not just from trading activity, but just willingness to, to experiment with cryptocurrency and new blockchain projects. We're, investing deeply in Korea. China, similarly, it's just such a large market, somewhere we pay a lot of attention to. I think what's most interesting to me when I look at our dashboards on, where our visitors are coming from and where our developers are and where our interest is, it's not any one country. It's everywhere. You look at the map and it's just solid green with every country in the world and people everywhere paying attention to this and supporting what we're doing. And that is the coolest thing in the world to me.
So for us, because we are based in Asia, so that's why we have been focusing on the Asian market as well. Countries like Korea, Japan, China, even Vietnam as well. So we have a big team in Vietnam. So we have been doing just blockchain meetup, right, technical meetup, so that we can introduce, invite top researcher to Hanoi and just do free meetup to introduce the technology to people there. So that more and more people get to know about blockchain and get to know about smart contract. And we have been getting around 100 developers, just show up and ask question consistently. So I think that's a good signal. And of course we are also trying to do something in Europe as well, because we also have a team over there, and they have been trying to attend conferences, technical conferences, right? It's not necessarily blockchain or smart contract conferences, and I think it's a good way to introduce more non-blockchain developer to the space, so that they can build something interesting. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, different Korea. I think Japan, Korea has kind of been the same kind of similar situation. I started from a lot of retail ambassadors and more developers getting into the space. And also maybe Berlin. I just visited there for Web3 Summit last month, and there's so much less retail ambassadors compared to Japan, but I've seen so many super talented developers there, especially around Parity, Web3 Foundation. Yeah.
Blockchain is the largest redistribution of wealth since the Industrial Revolution. And one of the best parts about that is that it is so international. That redistribution is happening all over the world. For Referium, we apply the lens of games and blockchain, and so markets and countries and cities, particularly like Korea, that's been mentioned, is so fascinating for us because we've always noticed that gamers are usually the first to technically adopt something, to try something. Of course, they have good rigs, they're into this, they're geeks, myself included, that's for sure. And so the Venn diagram of blockchain and games is almost a perfect circle. And so for us, places like Korea or the States are certainly the most exciting, but again, the ultimate exciting part is that it is so international.
Okay. Nice. So I think, for all the the topics that we've been talking about so far, it's very clear that we need a very strong foundation of developers who are, supporting our projects and, kind of like propagating this community values. Well, first, really quick, with the audience, like, how many developers do we have in this room? 코딩 하시는 분, 손 들어주세요. I just embarrassed myself with my Korean. Okay, so we have a couple. So, to interact with these developers, like you guys have already mentioned some methods that you guys employ. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you guys recognize these talents once they start interacting. So, let's say they're on your Slack, Telegram channels, and they say, I want to do a pull request, and let's say like they've already committed some code. Now you want to bring them onto your team. What are some ways that you are approaching recruitment now that you have a strong community?
Sure. So at Origin, if you do a pull request on Origin and we accept it, you'll automatically be featured on our website. So that happens automatically. If there's a script, it will just do that. And so we, have lots of dozens and dozens of people who are recognized on our website just for, even if it's you fix a typo, right? And we think that's really important. We want to acknowledge the role that our community is playing in this. If you send us 3 good pull requests, we're going to reach out and we're going to say, hey, let's talk. Right? We'll get on a video hangout and we'll chat. We'll see what you're up to. If you're really great, we'll offer you a contract. We'll bring you in as a contractor. And we'll, pay you to continue contributing to our project. And then the very sort of best of the best, we extend full-time offers to. So as a result of this, we don't do any traditional interviews at all on the engineering side. We don't do whiteboard sessions. There isn't really even a path for you to do that unless you've worked with myself or my co-founder or someone on our team in the past. There's really not a good way to sort of get an interview with us if you're an engineer. I mean, we really push everyone through this flow of go, contribute, start working on the project first. And this is great. It's great for me. I hate whiteboard interviews. They're the worst. And so, and on both sides, right? Whether you're giving the interview or being on the receiving side of that, they really suck. And so what we found is this is a much better experience for everyone. You get a sense of what it's like actually working on our project, interacting with our team, and likewise our team gets a chance to know you as well in a much more authentic way.
We haven't really hired any technical developer from our community yet. I guess mostly because people have their own agenda, and they maybe just they're interested in the technology and they just wanted to learn more about it. But we do provide a lot of support. We explore the idea with them, introduce them to the people who are doing the same thing, so that they can explore the idea and work on it together. And we have found that quite helpful in bridging people together and promoting the use case that they are working on, and then share it with the other community members as well.
So this is actually the topic that I just discussed with Aya Miyaguchi from Ethereum Foundation, and we took I think this is the industry that can get, people can get easily discovered, so just be very proactive and then bold to, to put your work on GitHub or maybe ETH Research, or just discuss with people on Twitter, and I think this is the fastest and then maybe the best way.
Yeah, I'll give one example of an engineer we brought on full-time at Origin. He was a commercial real estate guy before, didn't have a computer science degree. If he'd sent us his resume, we wouldn't have even looked at it, just being completely honest. But he didn't send us his resume, he started sending us pull requests. And he blew us away with the work that he did, and now he's one of the key guys in our team that we really couldn't survive without. And so I think it is a great opportunity to really prove yourself and let your work stand for itself and speak for itself. And it doesn't matter sort of where you worked before or what school you went to. If you're a good engineer, that should be enough.
Yeah, that's such an important point. We've hired a developer and some community folks straight out of our community, out of our Discord channels. And I think that one thing that you touched on right there, Josh, was an element of inclusion, right? Of making sure that everything that you're doing is results and it's impact based, right? And if you have people of different backgrounds, you mentioned the resume thing, that's a very hot topic over in Silicon Valley, right? Is how do you create a screening process that is inclusive of all different types of backgrounds and skills, because sometimes you'll weed out the people that could have benefited your project the most. And so really just keeping that element of inclusion is so important. And I think it works particularly well when you're hiring out of your community, because those people are proving that, hey, they're in there, they're dedicated, they're talking, they're huge fans, they're motivated, they're there sometimes all day, all night. That's the ultimate resume, right? That's effort.
Yeah, I guess like these things would not be possible unless you actually provide them with access points and open up the funnel so that they can actually participate with your projects. Right? So hence the more importance on community. So I kind of want to talk more about, let's say that there are people in this room who want to get involved, but they're not familiar with the blockchain stack. What are some ways that you guys identify developers who are still talented, who could learn to work their way around the Web 3.0 stack? And do you guys have any internal training processes to get these quote unquote normal developers up to speed for Web 3.0?
For non-developers, first we have ways that there's plenty of other ways you can get involved, and I want to address that as well. So whether that's community management, that's obviously something that's valuable to all of us up here. That's an important thing you can do. Translation skills, if you speak other languages. Our website is in 20 different languages, and it was all translated by our community. And so there's lots of great ways you can get involved, even if you aren't not a developer. For newcomers who want to get up to speed, I don't know if there was anyone on our team you would call a blockchain engineer. Right? We all just learned it on the job. And so we do our best to help newcomers get up to speed, and we think our DApp is actually a pretty good way if you just want to learn, if you want to look at how you build a decentralized app. Download our code, take a look at it, ask questions on our channels if it doesn't make sense. And there's lots of friendly people both in our team and just in our extended community who will be happy to help you. As far as structured stuff, we do have documentation. We try our best to keep it up to date. We try and help newcomers, but we don't have any sort of training program or anything like that. There's tons of great resources out there on the web though. So if you're just wanting to do a hello world on Web3, there's plenty of great tutorials out there, and that's probably the best place to start.
Yeah, so we have been doing several Solidity tutorial to the developers in Singapore and Japan as well, and also in Korea, and we also introduce them to our Telegram channel just for developers, so that if they later on have any question, there are always our members over there to help them and assist them, right? So we realized that the moment that we created a specific channel for developers, a lot of people just join, and the conversation is much more technical than having a large group of everyone over there. So we are super happy about that decision that we created a developer-centric channel.
I'm not a developer, but although I'm taking some Udemy courses to teach myself. But even if it's not a non-developer, there's so many roles that we can do. In my case, there haven't been many people in Japan with tech startup background who can communicate in English and then connect the international project with the Japanese enterprises or communities. And that's basically what I've been doing so far. So yeah.
Yeah, I think real quick, it's far too young of an industry for any developers to have much of an insecurity. There's really not there's not enough talent out there. And so really you'll find that companies are welcoming you with open arms, whether that's informal or formal training processes, everybody's very hungry to teach more and more about blockchain. And also I'd say that's not just for developers. Whether you are community or marketing or sales, there's so much to learn about the industry that again, these companies are just standing by to teach more and more. So definitely, if you're ever interested, get out there. There's so much opportunity.
Yeah, echoing Dylan's words, I think it's really important for, something that I say at every boot camp that Dapper Network runs is that it's still very early, and for you, yeah, exactly I like the way that you put it. It's too early for developers to feel insecure about their blockchain development skills because there just aren't many blockchain developers, right? Ethereum was launched 3 years ago, and to have 3 years of experience and be considered like one of the first developers in a space, that's kind of insane. So definitely, what we try to do is to motivate developers and say, hey, just hop in, learn just a small facet, let it grow from there, and see what you like, So that's great. And for the last question, before we get into some audience questions, I'd like to know, I think this is the most important question for you guys. Do you guys have a wish list of things? So 2 parts. One is, how do you identify a developer's competence for them to be able to work around the Web 3.0 stack? Because from a technical components, it's not like, you're just swapping out different languages and, you're using different tools. It's more of a mindset shift, right? It's very subtle, but it results in large practical differences. So what do you have on your wish list for us to help better identify developers' competence? And then I'll get into the second part later.
Sure. So, and our flow, we're looking for quality of code because we don't have formal interview processes. You're really being evaluated based on the code that you send to us. But it's not just that. It's also we're a distributed team, and so it puts a much higher bar for communication. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of really smart people who really struggle to communicate their ideas. And those are people who maybe not do as well on our team because we're distributed and we have to be able to understand what you're saying and you have to be able to clearly communicate your ideas to the rest of the team. So I think that's particularly important for distributed teams that so much of what we're doing, and particularly writing skills, because most of our communication is in Discord, and so it's really important we have clear written skills in addition to strong technical chops. And so that's my wish list is for people to focus on their communication as well as the engineering that they're doing, right? So it doesn't matter if you have a superior solution to a problem if you can't convince anyone that this is the right way to go.
Yeah, I think for us, what we have been trying to do is just, to have a small trial, a short trial with them, right? Work on a small project and see how they approach the problem, how they write the code and things like that. And after like a few weeks, we can like quickly conclude whether like this is a good fit for the team. Yeah.
Yeah, still I think Japan, when it comes to tech side of blockchain, it's still lagging behind compared to, let's say, US market or Europe. So I'd like to continue bringing more and more pretty good project to Japanese market, and also probably English. So it's funny, but I see a lot of Japanese developers or just community members in blockchain in Japan started learning English very, very hard. So I hope it will, it will come out something good maybe in the next 6 months or year.
Yeah, completely echo. And Josh stole my answer. I think communication is by far and away always the top concern with that. And also, what we were talking about earlier is letting go, in terms of searching for developers, letting go of any insecurities, again, of talking about we're all still figuring this out as an industry and as a community. Ask for help, right? That's something that I think blockchain is particularly good at fostering, is a very tight-knit community of developers where it's safe and it's okay to say, I don't know the answer to that question. And I think the more that we can push ourselves, that safer environment, the faster we'll move as we'll all be sharing that knowledge.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. And finally, what is on your wish list for certain types of educational resources to get people up to speed on, just like blockchain in general?
I think for us, introducing people to Solidity and the new paradigms on how you build on the blockchain would be really valuable.
I hope we can convert more web or system developers to blockchain and smart contract developers, because I think there's still a huge pool out there that people don't know about blockchain and smart contract.
Well, as a person being in a traditional startup world, there haven't been many people that are looking at Japanese market. Let's say like U.S. investors or U.S. founders finding Japanese market very, very interesting, attractive. But in blockchain, it's a different story. So a lot of people are paying attention to Japan, and I think it's the same story for Korean market too. So I think it's a very, very good, huge opportunity for people with background in Korea or maybe Japan or other Asian countries.
Yeah, the details and the specifics of every tutorial I wish I had or the team had, I think changes from day to day. So I'll answer that with a bit of a twist, I would say, is that in terms of my wish list, like you asked, it would be that the community steps up to teach these things, right? It's that the community and each other fosters an environment where the details are there, where we can continue those communications. That's something that we're really passionate about in terms of building tools for, right? There's a lot of communications and community building that is simply not available, right? Even when it comes to attracting developers or finding more talent, it's very hard to run ads on Facebook to do that like you would if you're a traditional startup, or Google, or even Twitter if you're a blockchain company. Sometimes they just get shut down. And so it creates this void of being a little bit more siloed in all these approaches than I would like as an industry. And so I think it's extra important in the tools that both Referium builds and the industry builds is how can we better connect those environments and those communities together and provide an onboarding experience to answer those exact questions.
Nice. So the reason why I asked this question is a setup to show my project, Dapper Network. Just kidding, this wasn't planned, but this is a perfect segue. So like with Dapper Network, what we do is we give local communities a playbook for them to kind of go by, just like how ETH Global does it with Ethereum hackathons. What we want to do is for education, exactly that, how we can help spread this excitement for you to be a participant in your own community, to teach others what you know, and maybe learn more through that, because the best way to learn is to teach, right? So if you're interested in any of these projects or Dapper Network, please come talk to us afterwards, and you'll have our contact info. I think we have time for one audience question. One question. Who will be the lucky person?
질문 있으시면 손 들어 주시겠어요? Questions? Comments? I think everyone's a little tired.
So many questions that they don't want to take up our time. Okay, then I guess we'll just end it here. So thank you everyone for having us. We have Josh, Loy, Obi, and Dylan, and myself, Eric. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Erica.
Happy BUIDL. Keep building.
Thank you, Erica.